If you have the improv workflow down in the Elektron realm, you can play forever. There's no DJ that could stand up to the force that is somebody who is well-versed in live improv electronic music. Today we're going to discuss two different types of workflows. We're going to talk about the semi-improv workflow versus the fully improv workflow. There are multiple different ways to write music in hardware electronic music, and sometimes you write for performances, and sometimes you write on the machines and you record into your computer, and sometimes you just write on the machines and you just want to write songs on there and then record those when they're done. The workflow that I like to use is this semi-improv workflow. So we have two different types of mute modes in the Elektron workflow. Elektron offers you a pattern mute and a global mute mode. It's really cool. It's extremely flexible. This here is a pattern mute. In the Elektron workflow, the pattern mutes are assigned to your patterns, which is really cool. That means that when I go from pattern 14 to pattern 13, you can see the mute states have changed. Now, in global mute mode, when you move from one pattern to another, doesn't matter what pattern, they stay the same across all banks and all patterns. Both of these mute modes are extremely useful, but you don't blend them together. That's not something that is very common. I've never seen it, honestly, because they're conflicting. The units ship with global mute mode. In demo mode, they're in global mute mode. You go into a store, they're likely in global mute mode to try the machine out. And the kind of workflow that you do in this mode gives you an expectation that when you take, say, your kick out of a pattern and you go to your next pattern, that your kick will still be out of the pattern. Even though your next pattern has all new sound sources, you knew that your kick would be out of the pattern. It's not because you had some predetermined thing written into your music that the kick would be removed from your pattern. You knew because you muted it beforehand. And this has a very powerful effect on how you write your music and how you perform live. Now in the techno workflow, this is very good because this means that you're very open to improv. This is like by far the most flexible workflow in terms of improv, and I'd say improv really lends itself to techno production more than any other live performance type electronic music. Is the best way I could put it, because it gives you the most flexibility. You have this very basic and almost Neanderthal understanding of it, just like, it's mute, no sound. You know, it's just like, it's so basic, you don't have to think very hard about it at all. It's just gonna do exactly as you expect. Now with the pattern mute mode, the expectation of your music is that when you go to the next pattern, it's gonna hit a predetermined precipice. If I go from pattern 1 to pattern 2, I expect that at pattern 2, the kick, the snare, a particular lead line, and maybe all of the crash cymbals or whatever, just certain elements of the music, they're not gonna be there, and or they're going to be there. So this is kind of the in-between method, this pattern mute mode versus the global mute mode. Like the in-between mode between like doing song mode. So like this is like got a little bit of a song mode-ish to it because there's an expectation when you go from one pattern to the next. And in this mode, there's not really any song mode stuff to it. It's at the lowest form of what you would consider a song mode. You are 100% the song mode when you do the global mute mode. You might want to do the arranger workflow. If you're working with a band, you might want to do the pattern mutes workflow. If you're coming from a singer-songwriter's perspective, like I have, and you're integrating electronic music into your singer-songwriter brain. And then you might want to do the global mute workflow if you're really interested in doing live improv techno production, because that's the best one for that particular workflow. The semi-improv workflow takes a bit from the arranger perspective, and it takes a bit from the global improv perspective, and it mashes them together. Okay, here's the first feature that I'd say is like a game changer. Holding function while in your mute mode and queuing up your mutes. This is bananas. And in fact, if you have large hands like I do, I'm gonna take this kick out. I'm gonna queue up these new elements. I'm gonna hold function. I'm gonna grab this one. I'm gonna remove these, bring this in, and then I'm gonna use my Octatrack. I'll grab like a filter. No, I'll grab a 4-bar effect. Check this out, this is cool. This effect will start at the beginning of the next 4 bars. Here's some drama. That was a transition inside my song where I went from low energy to high energy using pattern mutes plus mute cue plus something to snag my audio, grab it, hold it in place, and create a linear transition. That's amazing. But the next big part of this workflow is the fact that we have 16 tracks. This completely changes things. What my particular workflow is, and what I really, really love about this 16 tracks, and when these new machines came out and they had all these tracks, I was like, what am I gonna do with all these tracks? So the workflow that I like to do is I actually duplicate my sounds. If there's a kick here, and there's a rumble here, and there's a clap here, then there's a kick here, a rumble here, and a clap here. They're alternative versions of each other. And while I'm playing, as you can see, one would be muted while the other is not. And I don't want them to play with each other. I don't want to have two kick patterns playing two different kicks at the same time. So let's do a little build up. So I can cue this, or I can just go like this. We're still in the same song, but we're in a new vibe. And I can mix and match these sounds. I can take this one out and switch over to this melodic sound. I'm still in the same pattern. I'm able to improv, semi-improv, mind you. I use every track on my Octatrack, every show, all 16 of these tracks. If there's a bass line here, there's a bass line here. If there's a lead line here, there's a lead line here. There's an antithesis to this lead line on this lead line. I can practice my songs over and over and over, and all I gotta do is reload. That's all I do is go reload, pattern, bam, everything refreshes back to the original state, and I can practice again and again and again. Muting and unmuting, that's a whole skill unto itself, knowing what to mute, practice stretching my fingers across these two machines and giving them a little workout. So that's why and how I do the two things. One kit, one kit, one kit, one kit, and I don't have them play at the same time. Now, track 16 on all is always the same thing on both machines. Track 16 is my sidechain track. Sidechain is running currently. It's on the melodic side, which is where I think it's the most important. I'll mask what I'm doing with a performance effect, just some sort of filter. Sidechain taken away. I got that rhythm still there from the clap. It's like completely changed the vibe of the song, but it filled up all the space that was being taken from the sidechain, but I removed a lot, so I have room for this. It's really fun to do stuff like this. Here's again, without it. Sounds good both ways, but of course, when it's there, it feels like a little overwhelming compared to when it wasn't, because I wrote it to be sidechained. Does that make sense? So another thing that you can do with the pattern mute workflow versus the global mute workflow, aka semi-improv versus global improv, is that in the global workflow, a lot of people don't even use the Elektron sequencer at all. They just use them as these multitimbral instruments. So what is a multitimbral instrument? Basically, it means that you can have two different instruments playing at the same time from the same instrument. So you could have two keyboards if you wanted, playing two different sounds at the same time. You could do some crazy stuff if you're an octopus. Octatrack and the Digatone 2 are 16-part multitimbral instruments. That means that every single voice on these machines can be used separately from a separate MIDI channel, and you can control these different, like you could have 16, literally, 16 different MIDI keyboards plugged into your Digatone, and each one could play one note at a time. You could get 16 people and you could do some dumb TikTok stuff. That being said, when you pair this with a interesting sequencer like an Oxy Mark II, the global mutes are the only ones that really matter versus the pattern mutes, because you're just going to be taking tracks in and out manually anyway. Your idea is just to generate patterns and send them over to the machine, and then you bring the global mutes in and out. And that's a lot of the workflow that's really popular today. I think the last thing that I wanted to mention is something that I'm working on now implementing into my workflow, and that is like a fill track. And so track 15 for me is gonna be my fill track, so I'm like sacrificing tracks from kits to do specific actions. Like this is the sidechain kit, so it's just always set to be a sidechain. Now this is gonna be a fill track, and this will be a fill track, and so I'll have all of these tracks to play with in improv during my semi-improv workflow. Now a fill track to me looks like something like this. I've got this little drum pattern here. And what I do to make drum fills is I just play with some like random trigs. I go in and I slice up a drum fill, like a real drum fill. Then I rearrange that drum fill on a track. When you go to your trig condition and you select fill and you turn it on, the first fill you get is don't play. Fill, don't play. If you wanted to have a drop, you might go don't fill on a ton of triggers because you might have 16 hi-hats there and you need all 16 of them to have don't fill. And this fill track can be however the length of your track is. And then you go in and you choose all the sounds that you do not want to be heard during your transitions from one track to the other. So that was kind of the last piece that I really wanted to talk about with the improv thing. I'd say the last big piece of the puzzle is here. I use the Octatrack Mark II. I have spent years and countless hours and tons of iterations creating cool live hardware electronic music performance templates for my Octatrack, and I build these cool effects that are like 4 bars long or 2 bars long, and they have built-in build-ups, as you heard during some of the demonstrations. They have beat repeats and glitchy effects and granular stuff and just straight up filters for me to manually do, and reverbs and delays and blah, 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 blah. I do all that. I like to personally separate my drums into one bus and my melodic stuff into another bus, and then I can build effects for those two types because effects for drums and effects for melodic stuff are often very different. So for me, I like to use this box. I think it's great. You can get my templates for extremely cheap by joining my Patreon, and you can try a zillion different versions and effects and different workflows and ideas. All you need at the bare minimum for a live performance is a high pass filter. You can get away with this. So I think that's kind of the end of this discussion. You know, I get asked about a lot and I wanted to just illuminate all those ideas, and then you can hopefully apply some of these ideas or techniques to your workflow. Visit patreon.com/EZBOT and sign up to be a Patreon. Other place you can get performance templates are coffee.com. EZBOT.live is a good place for that. If you want to get the cool MIDI cables or any of my other cables, all the cables that you've seen are available at modbang.com. Other ways to support this channel are literally just to come back and watch it again, or leave a nice comment and a like. It goes a really long way. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. There's affiliate links if you want to get Digattack, Digatone, Octatrack, TR1000, all that stuff. It pays the channel handsomely, so if you want to pick that stuff up and also support me at the same time, you can do that. It won't charge you extra or anything. In fact, the place you get it from has got some of the fastest shipping I've seen, and they often have all the stuff in stock, which is really sick. My name's Matthew, aka EZBOT. I'll see y'all next time.